Welcome to the 12 News Digital Digest on WJTV.com. I'm Marcus James.
And I'm Sienna Reeves. Here's a look at the top 12 stories of the week. A Parchman inmate dies while at the Merit Health Hospital in Clarksdale. A.D. Mills passed away on Wednesday. He was sentenced to life in prison in 2000 on capital murder charges in Madison County. The Coahoma County coroner says Mills' death was not a homicide.
5 other inmates have died in Mississippi prisons since the end of December, and 3 of those deaths were at the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman. The Mississippi Department of Corrections says that 2 of the deaths at the prisons were related to riots. Governor Phil Bryant believes gang violence from Jackson to Parchman is part of the problem.
The inmates are the ones that take each other's lives. The inmates are the one that fashion weapons out of metal. The inmates are the one that do the damage to the very rooms that they are living in there. So I would say you look to the inmates. There is no one that's perpetrating them to commit crimes within inside those walls of the penitentiary.
Now, Brian also says lack of funding has to do with why the prison may be failing in certain areas. And Congressman Benny Thompson also called for a federal investigation into the prison system.
Protesters rallied at the state capitol calling for changes to Mississippi's prison system. They want justice for the inmates who died in the riots.
When you treat humans like animals, then you get animalistic behavior. And to deflect the responsibility to make it seem like that it's a gang war, it's not a gang war.
Protesters say it's up to the legislation to take care of the prison system.
The Mississippi Department of Corrections lifted the lockdown for all state prisons except for Parchman. Visitation and other privileges will resume at the other facilities. And in a possible effort to curb some of the violence at the prisons, 375 Parchman inmates are reportedly being moved to a different facility.
The Department of Corrections made the announcement on Thursday. The inmates will be moved to a private prison. Governor Phil Bryant signed an emergency declaration for the transfer. The move will cost more than $2 million of taxpayer money.
During the 2020 legislative session, lawmakers are taking action on teachers' pay. They're working to fix a deficit from last year. On Thursday, the State House voted to pay the full cost for this year's teachers' pay raise. Last year, officials discovered a bureaucratic error in county teachers. House Bill 1 will cover the $18 million shortfall. The proposal is now in the state Senate for more work and is expected to be approved.
The Mississippi State Board of Health is against the medical marijuana ballot initiative. Board members say the FDA hasn't defined medical marijuana. They decided to oppose the initiative because the State Department of Health would have to regulate the growing, selling, and taxing of marijuana.
The prosecutor at the center of the Curtis Flower case asked for recusal. In a court filing, Doug Evans says he's voluntarily recusing himself and his office from further prosecution. Evans has prosecuted Flowers in 6 trials. Each trial was appealed. Flowers was convicted of murdering 4 people at a Winona furniture store in 1996. Evans asked the state attorney general's office to decide if Flowers should be tried for a 7th time. Flowers was released on a $250,000 bond last month.
A Jackson couple is in custody after Jackson police say a fight started in an apartment complex and continued to Interstate 220. James Lowe and Janita Abbott were each charged with misdemeanor domestic violence. Police say the fight started on Covington Park Drive and it continued on I-220, where police say Abbott broke the windows out of a car. The Vicksburg District of Army Corps of Engineers will close the Steel Bayou this week.
Yeah, the Mississippi River at Vicksburg is expected to crest at almost 40 feet by Sunday. The Army Corps says using temporary pumps to drain the Yazoo backwater wouldn't help fix water levels much. The district's 4 flood control reservoirs are being used to hold excess rainwater to prevent major flooding. And a fire destroyed an apartment unit at the Landings Apartments in Vicksburg. One of the people affected by the fire was a 9th grade high school girls basketball coach at Warren Central. Heather Casey coached a game for the team the same day the fire destroyed her apartment, and she says that she's not looking at her loss as something bad.
I want them to always know that you don't have to dwell and sit in a bad situation. You can keep moving forward, and that's what my mind said. Okay, I lost everything. I can't go get it back, but I can continue to do my job, lead these girls, inspire these girls, and be a motivation to them. That is my ultimate goal.
Mississippi State hires Mike Leach to be the next head football coach for the university. Fans greeted Leach when he arrived in Starkville on Thursday. Leach just wrapped up the most successful 8-year run in Washington State history. They were 11-2 just a couple seasons ago, with Brandon native Gardner Minshew leading the way as quarterback. 12 News talked to Gardner's dad shortly after the news broke.
You're talking about a guy who, the moment he steps on campus, you get national coverage every week. I mean, you think about how many people have heard from Washington State since Leach has been there than before. And so I think you're automatically nationally relevant just because everybody in the country knows who he is. So I think that's probably the biggest part of it. And he's always been successful everywhere he's been.
Leach was hired after former head football coach Joe Moorhead was fired on January 3rd. Remember, news, weather, and sports are available 24/7 at WJTV.com and on our news and weather apps.
And be sure to engage us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back next Friday with a look at next week's top 12 stories.